look pretty. Why don't you pick us up with your little tassels?
Welcome back, everybody. This is Lauren.
Carrie.
And Emily.
And this week, well, first of all, we're Team Spirit Podcast. And this week we are talking about the ego.
Oh, yeah.
Dum dum dum.
Where do I want to start with this?
You pick and oh my God, it could be anything.
No, that's what makes it hard.
I know.
Because it's such a
Well, why
vast
don't we talk
topic.
about just how it's brought up all the time? That's a good place to start.
That is a good
Like how
place.
the ego and the way that it's viewed in spirituality and the way that it's perceived in spirituality. Like, what is when you think of the ego, do you think of it as a bad thing or a good thing?
It's personally, for me, it's my human. So it's the human part of me. And I always say that I'm straddling my human and my higher self. So basically, that's the ego and the soul.
Yeah.
And I feel like I go back and forth with if it's good or bad. Like, I know that we need our ego. It does protect us.
Mhm.
And we are humans. That's why we're here, to live that experience. So it's normal to have an ego. We need to have it. But just like anything else, too much of anything's a bad thing. So living too much in your ego, that's not good. Living too much in your higher self, that's not good. We need to stay grounded, but we also need to be more abstract and not so black and white. So it's really complicated. I'd say probably what it all comes down to is balance, and kind of trying to balance living in both and not feeling guilt for one or the other.
Yeah. I just looked up the definition just because, like, what's the actual definition of the ego?
Yeah.
A person's sense of self-esteem or self-importance.
Yeah.
That's it.
It's so simple. It's so small, but I feel like people really use ego as kind of like a blaming type thing.
Yes.
Like when people don't know how to fight back. Yeah. When people don't like something about someone or someone's reaction, they're always like, oh, they have a big ego. And I don't know. I really like how you put it, that it's your human.
Yes.
Because I think it kind of puts some backing to it, because it really is just kind of, it feels just so you can't grasp it sort of idea. Yeah. And I really think that in the negative terms, it's because people use it kind of as a weaponry word.
A negative thing. It's it's like very negative, a lot of negativity around the ego.
Yes.
But it's what's interesting about seeing the definition of, is it a bad thing to have self-esteem?
No, too much of it. But like Emily said, it's all about balance.
Like, is that self-esteem, or is that like, what's the difference between having self-esteem and then being cocky? Or I feel like the ego can go a lot of different ways. And I know, like, in our practice, it's exactly what you just said, Lauren, of like, everybody's like, oh, they have a really big ego. And I'm not going to lie, I have said that about individuals. And I feel like the way that my ego, I feel like it's not great either way, right? Like it's out of balance either way. But there are people that you would consider that have a big ego that do this work, and like their MO is like being the best, being better than everyone, kind of like stepping on people on their way up to what they perceive to be the top, like being in competition with people. And that's not good. I want to say that. But it's also not good when you have imposter syndrome, which is another form of the ego, where that is also the ego, where it's like you don't feel like you're good enough, you don't feel like you're worthy, you don't feel like you're deserving, and then you're kind of living in this state of being fearful or afraid or anxious because your ego is trying to protect you in that way of being like, maybe this isn't for you because you might fail at it. But the reality is we could fail at anything we try. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't try it.
Right. Yeah. I just think it's so vast, and it's hard to differentiate. Oh my God.
Differentiate.
Differentiate the difference between, I think, like, right.
I'm like, now I'm questioning myself. It's like when you go to type a word and it doesn't look like it's spelled right, and it's like a 4-letter fucking easy as shit word.
Yes.
Oh my God. Welcome to my life.
Brain aneurysm.
But I think that it's really hard to for the difference between ego and personality, because I think some people, it's just their personality.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, that's just kind of who they are. And maybe even underneath that, their ego is going through imposter syndrome,
Sure.
Yeah, it's exactly
kind of like we're hiding behind our ego.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe that's the shield between our human and higher self.
Now, how do you guys view the saying starving or killing the ego? Because that's a big thing in spirituality, especially when it comes to different reading modalities like psychism or mediumship or.
I think for me, killing or starving the ego would be like, and it goes back to like you asking what's the difference between having good self-esteem and being cocky. And I think when you have good self-esteem, but you're not cocky, it's that you know that you're good and you're worthy and you're deserving of things and that you're good at what you do, but you're not better than other people.
Right.
Like everyone is on the same playing field. Everyone has the same,
just different journeys,
potential.
Different
Exactly.
paths,
right. They're self-aware.
But you still think high, you still give yourself that self-love and you think highly of yourself.
Yeah. And you give yourself credit.
And I think that's starving the ego of letting go of competing with others, thinking you're better than others, thinking others are better than you. It's really being able to realize that we're all on different journeys. Some are going to be faster than others. Some are going to be slower than others, some harder, some not. The ultimate is to get to the same place.
Right.
And it's not a competition. We don't need to be stepping on other people. We don't need to be shaming people. I think that to me is what starving the ego is really finding that balance between, okay, I'm good enough. I'm a good person. I'm good at what I do, but I'm not better than other people.
I think starving the ego is fine, but I think to kill your ego.
That's not realistic. That could never happen.
Yeah.
I don't even believe it can happen unless you're a Tibetan monk or Jesus Christ or like Siddhartha. I don't know. Like
it's kind of like when people talk about fear. Everybody's like, you need to like release your fear. And it's like, well, hold on. Like actually, if you have fear, I read this book every year. It's called Big Magic. And it's all about the ideas of creativity and how they come to you. Mm-hmm. And one of the first things it talks about is you have to accept that fear is just part of life. It's part of emotions. And when
it's part of the lessons, the biggest lessons.
It's also for your protection.
And I was going to say
survival.
Yes.
If you're not afraid, you're in danger. There's danger everywhere. And you should have an inkling of, is this safe? Am I safe?
Right.
And I just feel like when I kind of accept fear that it's going to be part of my life, and I'm like, listen, fear, you're coming
Take the
along
back seat.
But you have no
Put
control.
It in the back seat.
Yes, but you're here. It's kind of the same thing. You can't kill your ego. You shouldn't kill your ego because it's needed.
Yeah. I'm so glad we're all on like the same page. Yes. Because I hear it all the time. Death of the ego, kill the ego. I'm like, but it serves a purpose. Yeah. And if it didn't, we wouldn't have it.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like,
again, it all comes back to balance.
Yeah.
It all comes back to balance.
And I think too, like when you're doing whatever modality, whether it's mediumship or psychism, and I understand like you kind of have to, like, for example, I have done readings for people that my human isn't necessarily fond of because there have been things in the past or whatever the situation is. But as a professional, take the whatever out of the equation. You have somebody coming to you for whatever their motive is. It doesn't even matter because they're trusting you with their energy. You are going into their energy, and you have to respect and honor that. And you have to kind of table all those other things. And I think that's where it's not so much like a death of an ego, but we need like fear. We need to set that aside while we're doing this. That cannot come into play, and we need to be neutral. And I think it's all about like not so much killing your ego, but coming from a neutral place of almost like, let's pretend none of that other petty stuff happened, and I'm going to give you a good reading because that's what you came to me for. And I take that very seriously.
Right. That's a very, very slippery slope for people like who don't want to or don't have an easier time to then just manipulate that situation.
And listen, like I'm not a saint. Like I had, especially like when I first started getting on TikTok and I was doing readings and I had people coming ask, and I could see the cards and I could feel like clairsentient. I could feel how like very negative this person was or how they were affecting your life. And it's hard. I have gotten heated in a reading before. I have left the neutral zone. Like I am also a human. I'm not perfect. I'm not perfect, but again, like looking back, I can see it, I can recognize it, and I can improve it. And like that's the thing, because we're never going to be perfect all the time.
Right.
And it's like, I'm not going to beat myself up over it. It was that I was triggered, right? Maybe it's something that I have been through in my life, and that situation is triggering to me. And that's why the shadow work is really important. And that's why the healing work is really important. But if those triggers don't come up and that happens, then how do you recognize that that's a trigger? And then that's something that you need to work on. That's like the whole point, right? So it's like, yeah, I'm not perfect, but I've definitely, and Emily has as well, like, especially like in this work, gotten better at putting things off to the side.
Yes.
And you need ego for that. Your ego brings self-awareness. And so without your ego, without self-awareness, you're not able to put those things aside.
Right.
For the matter at hand. I have had countless interactions with clients that I was less than pleased dealing with, and you suck it up or you lose out on it, is kind of the matter of running your own business. And sometimes they're worth it in most cases, sometimes not. I had to literally tell a client at one point, I mean, he was not my client anymore because I had finished the project, but I had to tell him that he needed to stop contacting me because it was riding a line of like
unprofessionalism.
Yes. And I hope that in that moment I was acting out of my safety and not because I was so angry at him from before, or like I wasn't angry, I was annoyed. Oh my God, he was annoying the shit out of me. But it's very difficult to ride that line and find that balance. And I think, I don't know, we're all human, and to find that balance, we've got to give ourselves grace for it.
Yeah. And do we ever truly find it? We might find it for a season. It comes and goes. Balance like comes and goes, and every day is going to look different.
Right.
Not all of our seasons are going to be great. I mean, look at Gilmore Girls. Their seasons 1 to 4 were wonderful, and then the rest, poo. Sometimes we're going to have a season 7 of Gilmore Girls, and we just got to get over it.
Right. And I've even like thinking like, I think Emily might know who I'm talking about. I'm not saying any names. And I adore this. I don't know this person, but this person comes to me for a lot of readings about their relationship.
Oh, yeah.
And I can really, like, when I'm in her energy, I can really feel how deserving she is of really healthy dynamic in love. But I can also really feel that there's a lot of hurt from the past that she's kind of consciously or subconsciously carrying into the new relationship. And I think it's happening on both ends of like from both parties. And it's kind of like my ego tells me that the energy. So my ego tells me it should be the same every time I read her. That's what my ego tells me, because I've read her so many times now, and I've read the situation so many times. And it's kind of gotten me fucked up in some ways, because I'm recognizing that shit shifts and changes and moves and all the time. Like the energy exchanges that we have with people, if you pulled cards on Sean and I 5 years ago, it's going to look a hell of a lot different than it is now. If you pull cards on Sean and I today versus 2 weeks ago, it's going to look a lot different. Right. But it's like funny how the ego comes in and it's like, hey, that can't be right, because remember the last reading?
That's so fascinating. And I have thought about that watching it sometimes, is how do you kind of put that aside for new energy? But when you think about it, when we do our own tarot spreads, we're reading our energy right now.
Yes.
I mean, sometimes we're looking at past stuff, but we do it all the time. We're not, recently, another thing, when everybody was coming at Harry Styles because of the vault songs for Taylor, I thought there were a lot of really interesting conversations. And I've had the same thought with people in my actual life, of the people that moment in time is about is a totally different person.
Yes.
You're not the same person.
So
you literally shed there's different versions of ourselves. And I think with that is a shedding of our egos.
Yeah, it is.
starve that part of that ego so that it can change and it can grow.
Evolve, right?
Yeah. And we close those chapters of, I say it all the time. I'm like, I don't know that girl anymore. In videos and pictures, I was like, I don't know her. Like I once knew her. We were besties and I hated her also, but like, I don't know her anymore. She doesn't live in here.
And imagine if people were to judge us for who we were a few years ago, like they are Harry Styles or anyone else. That's not fair.
Right. Exactly. It's like, I don't know. We all grow. And if we don't grow, then I don't know.
It's on us.
I have hope for you because you have to learn, you have to grow. And maybe that's where the ego is stunting people when they don't learn and when they don't grow. They're stunted by their ego.
Yes,
absolutely.
And not only in this work do we have to put our ego aside, but let's just
life,
think about
like every day
in corporate with the clients that we had that we couldn't stand
all the time,
that were awful to us, and we knew it answering the phone.
God, my ego definitely got the best of me.
Same.
That breath you'd have to take before you reply. You know what I would do? I would write out exactly what I wanted to say and then just track. And then I'd try again and I'd probably backtrack again. And then I'd be like, okay, I got that out of my system and now I can say what I need to say.
Yes, that is really a powerful thing to do that.
It is.
It really is. And that's energy. Dude, that is literally like energy that needs to be like come out. Really. It's so powerful.
You can't hold on to shit. You can't. You can't hold on. And maybe I don't know. I think ego just plays a role in so much of all of this, which is why it's so hard to talk about and why it's so hard to kind of grasp on, is it good, is it bad, because it rides the line of both.
I think it's neutral.
I mean, I think it could be all those things.
Yeah.
Can you read the definition for me again?
Yeah. Okay. The definition of the ego is a person's sense of self-esteem or self-importance. And then it says underneath of it, the part of the mind that meditates between the conscious and the unconscious and is responsible for reality testing and a sense of personal identity.
That's neutral. That is neutrality.
You know what else is interesting to me is that whether you lack self-esteem or you're cocky, you're still insecure.
Yes.
Because your cockiness, like you said, you're hiding behind the ego. And then, of course, when you're insecure, your ego is just eating you alive. Yeah. I think starving the ego is, like I said, when you can claim your importance and your worth, but also not compete with other people, but also not being insecure.
Right.
Being completely secure in who you are, that you're not competing with other people, but you also don't think that you're a piece of dog shit.
Exactly. And then let's even break it down. There can be things in your life where you got that, but then there's other things like these triggers where the ego's off balance. There's so many layers to it.
Yep.
Like you can be really confident in your job and competent and secure. And it's really like you're understanding your journey and there's self-awareness there. But then shit could be hitting the fan at home and you're battling it out with your partner and everything's a fucking chaos, a tower. And it's like, well, it depends.
Because I think it was a show or it was like, I don't know, written somewhere about like this, I guess it's the circle of the ego where you just have to be careful you're not dragging other parts of your life into the other places.
Yeah.
So like, I think the conversation was like someone got completely reamed out at work. And they were like, well, if you look behind it, what happened at home? Like, what are they bringing? What did they leave behind that is maybe doesn't have anything to do with you? And that's probably part of starving the ego, that not everything is about you. Not every interaction actually has to do with who you are, what you said, or whatever. Like sometimes we all take things out on people that we shouldn't have or didn't.
My boss in corporate at the job we all worked at together, whenever that person had issues with their partner at home, you knew it because they were coming in and taking it out on everyone else. And it's hard to not take that personally because your human's like, excuse me? But it was because of what they were going through at home with their partner.
Yeah.
Right.
And it happened a lot.
And that person probably didn't have a voice at home.
Right.
So then they're coming in to feel they're powerful.
They're compensating.
Yes, I was just gonna say that. Yep.
Yes.
What do you think? This is a loaded question.
Oh God.
What? Yeah, what do you think, like, what practices can anybody do that would kind of help work with your ego?
I hate to say it, but shadow work.
Yeah, and meditation.
Yeah.
And it's the balance of both. And I think that's shadow work is an incredibly, also a really important conversation that I think we should do as its own episode because it's so complicated.
Oh, absolutely. I got a lot to say about that.
Same. But again, I do think
it's all about balance. We're not going to live in our shadows and criticize ourselves and just.
Oh, if you're constantly doing shadow work, that's a very dark place to be in. Yeah. You don't know. We're not doing that.
But I think a healthy amount.
Pick it up, put it down. Yes. Pick it up, put it down. Pick it up, put it down. Forever.
We all have qualities we're not fond of and that they're not useful, but they don't bring out the best of us.
Right.
And that's kind of what shadow work can help us work with on ourselves. And like you said, you just can't get trapped there because then, I mean, how awful to think of only that about yourself.
Think about that Jeff and Shalia always saying shadow work, shadow work, shadow work, shadow.
And that one time I was in a cult. It's all about
it. Let's talk about it.
And then you were almost in a second cult.
And then I was almost in a second cult.
I mean, the first assignment was talk about what you hate about yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, I keep falling into these cults, man. I don't know what's happening.
When she told me that, I'm like, excuse me?
But you found a way out. Emily held space for you. And
no,
we found
I wouldn't say the second one was a cult. No. But it has potential.
Yes. Cult like
toxic space that is. Oh, it was kind of like twin flames in the beginning, where like it had not a purpose, but I mean, I guess purpose, and then it just
very
kind of dark-sided.
First experience was a cult.
Yeah.
But so one thing to answer your question about like what can help with helping to keep a healthy ego, I think we need to remember that we have a lot of help on the other side, and I think we got to remember to like I know when somebody that purchased a reading with me, then there was a little bit of drama around that like my human had some beef. Okay. I called in my guides. I mean, I took a moment on my live right before the reading and I would literally was just like, come on, I need help. I need help. I don't know what you can do, but I need help to separate my personal beef. And I want to give this person a decent reading.
Yeah.
And I did. And I don't know what they did and I don't know how they helped, and I don't need to, but I think we forget that we have help on the other side. And if you're struggling with something in your life, you know, whether you work with deities or angels or demons or whatever it is that you work with, and you maybe all of that, your personal guides, your ancestors, ask for their help. I mean, that's like,
absolutely.
It sounds so easy. And it's like our mentor always tells us like over and over again, shout out Carrie, best mentor ever. But seriously, she's like, we never ask. We never just simply ask.
And maybe that's kind of step one of working with our ego is asking for help, because it is so I myself would rather suffer and carry on things instead of asking for help, because for whatever reason, there's this huge shame behind it. And I think it's our generation, maybe. I think it might be that girl boss hustle shit that we all like really put on ourselves. And I am so glad there's so much conversation about that right now, that like that's a 2024 out. Everybody's leaving that shit behind. And so I think but it's still hard. It is still, you can say it's behind and you're not going to do it anymore. But that first step of asking for help is hard.
Yeah, very hard. You know, another thing that has helped me at least is being in therapy.
Yeah, therapy.
And having an unbiased person kind of give you different perspectives. And it's like, oh, I can't tell you how many moments of that I'm just like, holy shit, that makes sense.
Or even to validate what you're saying, because sometimes you're like, I say this thing to the people that know me or know whoever I'm having a problem with or whatever I'm having a problem with. And of course they say they're on my side, right? But then when you talk to your therapist who doesn't know really you or your back or them or the situation, and they can just validate your feelings. Yeah. They're the neutrality. And it's like, okay, I'm not insane. And now I can get over it, or not like work with it, or whatever it needs to be to heal.
You know, another thing that this work has taught me and my ego, and I'm still working through it, but it's receiving no's, being wrong. It's okay to be wrong.
Oh, yeah.
Really good one.
And a lot of times you're not even wrong. It's that the person may not know, or they'll come back to you and be like, holy shit, I forgot. Da, 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 da. That was so spot on. It's not, you know what I mean? There's just so many reasons why it could be a no. But of course, our human brain, especially being a perfectionist, you're like, I suck. I'm awful. And then that usually makes me shut down. But working through that, it's a lot better.
Yeah, I think there's a lot that's built on no's and failures. There's so much to learn from them.
You're taught from a very little age that no
is a negative.
And I mean, sometimes it is.
Sure.
But sometimes it's
a sentence.
Yeah,
it's just
a full sentence.
Yeah.
Oh, that is one of my favorite things when I learned that no is a full sentence. And I do think I kind of used it a little too more like powerful than I would like to admit when I first was doing it. I was just doing it to be mean. But
that's okay.
I would just flat out no.
I love it.
I love it too.
But and that also, I mean, that was a check of my ego to be like, now we're just not being nice. And that's not fair.
Right.
And
you gotta thank you at the end. No, thank you.
There we go.
No thanks.
But even if I agreed, or if I wanted to do it in some situations, I would just say no, just because.
That is one thing that not to get totally off topic, but that's one thing I've really been working on is I don't necessarily owe every single person explanation.
Right. Yes.
Same.
I don't owe any, like, I don't, and I've always felt that I've had to give an explanation. Like if I didn't want to do something, or if I couldn't make something, or I was struggling to meet my obligations, or like have to just explain my life away as to why that didn't work out, or I couldn't do that, and it's like I'm breaking up with that.
Yeah, sending
it's exhausting. It's exhausting.
Sorry, I can't.
And just being like, maybe I just don't fucking want to.
Right.
Right. Yes. I think I say this a lot because people in my life really struggle with that. I've gotten pretty good at just I find a balance with the word just. I don't like to use just in a way where I'm trying to validate myself, but I also will use just if it's simply it. So like if I'll be like, I just can't.
Yeah.
I just can't. And that's kind of all I need. And it feels a little better than I can't, and leaving it at that, because then I feel like I need to explain.
Yeah.
But I also think it's really important to consider that it's totally fine. And it probably, in the nicest way possible, doesn't really affect whatever is happening anyway. Me not going to Sandy's party, it's gonna be fine. She's gonna have her party with her friends, and they're gonna have a great time. And I probably needed to heal so I can go have a great time next time. But was I gonna have a good time at Sandy's if I went and I just didn't want to? No. And then
you want somebody at your party who doesn't want to be there? No. You don't want anybody at your party
party pooper.
Yeah.
Why that word exists?
It's the whole party down.
Yeah. You're doing everybody else a favor if you just can't.
Yeah. Yep. Agreed.
And I think deconditioning, like I love my parents, obviously, but I was raised that you had to say yes to people because they did things for you, that everything's transactional. And it's so that guilt is there. Like, oh my God, she did this for me, so I have to do this for her, even though I don't want to. And it's like trying to find the balance between, we do tend to have to do things we don't want to do to make others happy, but also realizing I don't owe anyone anything. Just because they did something for me, I didn't ask them to.
And a lot of the times, the people in your life that you have healthy relationships with,
you want to do shit with anyway.
It's like they want it to do that for you, or you want to do that for them.
Right.
It's like if that's not the relationship and you feel like it's owed, then maybe we need to take a look at the relationship.
Exactly.
We talked, Carrie, you said it last time about relationships with condition.
Yeah.
Like, that's not good.
Yeah.
We also ourselves shouldn't be doing things with the implying that I deserve something in return. That shit's got to end. You're people who kind of gift things or donate things. I have to tell everybody about it. You're not doing something good. That is self-serving. starving.
So you have to do that. It's a means of control, and I can't stand that.
And you know what happens to that? What you bought me, I probably donated it.
Right.
Yeah.
I fucking want it in my house. I don't want it in my space. I don't want it. I don't want it.
I didn't ask for it. I'm grateful that you gave it to me, or I'm grateful that you did this for me, but I didn't ask you to.
Yeah.
If you didn't want to get that for me or do it for me, then you shouldn't have.
You meant it.
No, too. It's not.
Yeah. There's definitely there's a huge difference when you receive something out of the kindness of someone's heart and like true intentions.
Yeah. You can always tell.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Style.
I really appreciate when people actually put thought into anything. I find it so kind and so special. And I really think long and hard about giving people things.
Me too.
Because I think it's so obvious when you give things to people that are like, oh, I felt I had to give you something.
Yeah.
And I just if someone takes a second and is like, oh, I thought you might like this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really kind. And I appreciate that.
Right.
It's important.
And it doesn't even have to be an actual physical thing. Sometimes if people text you out of the blue and they're like, hey, I saw this article. I thought you might like it.
Right.
Yeah.
So nice.
That's
they
thoughtful.
think of you. Yes.
Yeah.
A little thoughtfulness can go a long way.
Yeah, it definitely can.
You want me to pull a card?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we need to.
I got this new deck from my Secret Santa, the Metaphysical Cannabis Oracle deck.
Hell yeah. Oh God, that's pretty.
Yeah,
That's
even
pretty.
my cousin who knows nothing about Oracle, he's a pothead, and he's like, oh my God, can I see that?
She also got Pot Tarot.
Collectively for everybody on the ego.
Whoa, that's
Whoa.
Did you see that?
Yeah, that flew out.
Okay, we've got, I'm going to butcher this, Alabasicepo, and it says union.
Those are really pretty.
Let me see.
We'll see what this has to say. I'm just going to say A, because I don't want to.
Tell us what it is, baby.
So A means union, and as the traditional card of the lovers, we see harmony and love represented as the two bodies dance in front of a stage with a winged band. Both aspects of the lovers dances uninhibited as the ground around them sprouts two cannabis plants, one female and one male. Only the female produces the fruit, but the union is the foundation. This card appears to you when the balance. When the balance of a union needs to be balanced. This could be a union within yourself or a union with another spirit. You see this represented in the man's face as he smiles towards his partner. He has transferred the love of sharing trust from his parents to his lover. This card reassures you that you have outgrown these previous bonds that may not be rooted in foundation and that you can move forward with true love in your heart. A has come forward to teach oneness in relationships. Not all relationships are romantic, and this card reminds you to look at your friendships and extended family too. This card comes forward, you may need to ask yourself, who showed me what the structure of relationships can look like? Do I compromise my morals, authenticity, and happiness for others? We were literally just talking about this.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. The first sentence, I was like, oh my God, balance.
Yep.
The union is between the human and the higher self.
Yep.
Period.
I agree. And that's where you will, I don't know. That's where you will.
That's where you will.
Yep.
Period.
Full sentence.
Full sentence.
I think the moral of this story, as the card says, as I have said a million times in this one episode, it's all about balance. It's literally all about balance. It is okay to be a human and it's okay to be spiritual.
Yeah.
But we don't want to live in one or the other because that's when things get icky. So balance, folks. And I know it's easier said than done.
Yeah.
It takes work, but we've got the time and we deserve it. We deserve that balance. Well, thanks for joining in, everybody. You can find us on Instagram and TikTok at Team Spirit Podcast. Carrie and Emily are live on TikTok and can be found on TikTok and Instagram. Carrie is at Clarity by Cam, CAM, and Emily is at Enchanted Mystic by MK. Yep. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
It was a long time since I had to say that. I kind of forgot for a minute.